Hey there, and welcome to my channel. I'm Crafty Kathy, and I have for you a compilation of my most favorite DIYs from last season. It is spring and summer, and since it's a compilation video, they may not be in exact order, but please comment and let me know what you think. Now let's jump in. All right, for DIY number 1, we can't get started unless I show you the actual seed catalog. This is it. You know, all of their artwork is always beautiful, and every transfer is perfect. Now, there's a bunch of transfers in this one. It's actually got 8 by 12 sheets, and there's 8 of them in there full of different sized transfers. Look at this first beautiful one here. I think this is so pretty. And then we've got some that's got fruit on it, different fruit. There's strawberries, blackberries, cherries, mixed in with florals and birds. And I love the apple one. And one of my favorites is Little May. It says May's seed catalog, but when I look at that little girl, in my mind, her name is May. And so I just think that she is a little doll. And then there's some more apples and some more flowers. This is probably my favorite one out of all of them. And then this one is a new one on the right here that I think is gorgeous. And then there is just like a black and white colored one. And then one here that's got roses on it that's black and white. More strawberries, some peas. And then this beautiful one in the back. And that's all 8 pages of the seed catalog.
Now let's get to work on our project.
I got this sign at the thrift store. I only paid probably $3 or $4 for it. I can't remember. I have had this thing forever. And you see on the back of it, it's got a saying on it. But that's not going to bother us. We're not going to even use that side. We're going to use this back side because I love that it has this border around it. And so it looks like it's framed already. That's perfect. And I like that old rough lumber look of it. I measured it out just for reference. It's 30 long by 12 high. And my plan for this is to do a crackle. It's been a really long time since I've done crackle, and I thought, why not give it a whirl? I'm going to use the Dixie Belle Crackle. I've never used it before. And I'm first going to put down DIY paint, Dark and Decrepit. Now, Dark and Decrepit is a top coat, and it's a patina. And it did say if you want your wood to be like the color that it is under there, then use like a top coat. Well, I decided to use a colored top coat. Why not? Because the first color that you put down in a crackle is going to be the color that your cracks are, if that makes sense, like the cracks. I want mine to be dark and decrepit, so that's why I'm using Dark and Decrepit. Now, you see I'm not trying to be especially careful or anything on here. I pretty much just slapped it on there, and I painted the whole thing, the front and the back and all the sides of this. After your first coat is dry, then you're going to grab your crackle. Now, like I said, I've never used this before, and I was so pleased at the way it turned out. I'm not a huge fan of the Dixie Belle products because I'm a DIY girl through and through. But there are a couple of products from Dixie Belle, like this one and the Slick Stick, that I stand by and say are good products. I didn't do anything special. I pretty much slapped it on. I did not do it thick. I didn't do it thin. I just kind of did, you know, just a normal application of this. Like I said, I didn't know what to expect, and I was just hoping and praying for the best, you know. I did notice that this stuff is really thick, and you don't have to go and buy a special crackle. You don't have to do that. You can actually do this same thing with Mod Podge or with like just regular old school glue. Now, I got this crackle. Somebody gave it to me. I think a subscriber sent it to me, so I'm going to use it. I went around the edges, but I didn't do the back part. Now, it did take quite a while for that to dry, but when it finally dried, I grabbed my color bead board. This is going to be my top color. And it says, do not go back and forth. You make one swipe of paint. Well, this is a rough board, so it was kind of hard to do one swipe of paint. So by the time I was finished, I figured out it was best to do it in smaller strokes. It didn't say that you had to do it in one long stroke. It just said that it just needed to go one direction and don't backstroke. Just go zoop and you're done, you know. So I did that all the way on the front of my board here and then around what I'm going to call the frame. And then I just set it aside and patiently let it dry. And it almost started crackling immediately. I was really, really surprised. When that white coat dried, this is what it looked like, and I love it. It's exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to look like an old board that you found in Granny's barn from a million years ago that's just been sitting there, and time has just done its thing on it, you know? I have picked out 4 different transfers that I want to use on this piece, but I don't know how I'm going to set them out just yet. I do want to, of course, use the bigger ones because this is a bigger sized project. I know that I want the one that says seeds on it, and I've got to use my very favorite one, which is the one that has that pink dahlia on it. I love it. But I want to challenge y'all with something. You know, when we look at these transfers, we think to use them as a whole. I want to challenge you to use it in a different way. Just cut off the words. Now, of course, I cannot cut off that word that says seeds there because it's attached to the flower, basically, and it wouldn't look right if I cut it off. But most of the words there, I could cut off, and even if they are very close to the flowers like this one was, you'll see there in the white part of the flower and in the pink part of the flower, I had to kind of fussy cut around it. I had to be really careful because I didn't want to use or lose my beautiful dahlias. And what I do to make it look right is I cut it out. Like I said, I fussy cut it, which means you go in and out of all the little grooves, you know. And if it looks kind of funny or doesn't look like the petal like it did before, I just kind of cut it to shape it that way. Now, it's just a trick of the eye, but it works like a charm, honey. And I cut off all of the words to all of these pictures, except for that word seeds, because like I said, you know, it was kind of attached. Now, don't you think for a minute that I'm going to waste all those beautiful words. I'm definitely going to use them. I just set them to the side for when I am going to need them, and I can use them in different projects. You don't even have to use them in the same picture they came off of. But for right now, I want to focus on my flowers and get in my mind the image that I want this to be. Now, I know that I wanted the flower basically in the middle that's going to say seeds, but I just had to kind of spread out things to where it looks like it's one big, huge piece, like one big transfer. And that's all I'm doing here is just kind of feeling my way around the transfer. Now, I know just by looking at this that the dahlias are kind of going to be in the background. Not to where they're not seen, but they're almost going to be a background piece. So that is going to be the very first thing that I put down. Anything that you feel that is going to be a background piece, just put it down first. And then the stuff that you definitely want to stand out, put it on last. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at it, it's going to look like one cohesive piece, not like 4 different transfers. But that's just my little hack on how to put it together to figure out, you know, how do I make this look right to the eye? And then always after you do your transfers, you burnish them. And that just means you use that little plastic sheet that it came off of and basically just rub it around on the top of it. And it just helps to get a better adhesion. And this is another little trick that I love to do is I cut my transfers down as low as I can like I am here on the word seeds because I want to know how much room I'm going to have on the side. The backing on this is white, so if I just laid it down, I couldn't see the other pattern beside it to know exactly where to put that flower that I'm putting down now. But since I cut the word seeds down on the sides, I could actually tell exactly where I needed to put this one at. What you do is they give you a little tool in every single one of the transfers that come out, and it's this little plastic piece I'm using, and you just kind of rub it back and forth over your image. And I like to hold up the edge of my little plastic piece because I feel like it makes it go on easier. Now I'm putting on the one with the word seeds, and you'll see what I'm talking about. See, it's going to fit right here, right in between those other two, and you can still see them perfectly. But the difference is, since I cut those down, you can get it close enough to where they're not overlapped or covering up one, you know. And you can see here how I like to use that, take the edge up and pull it. And that just helps me to get a better, I don't know, it just goes on easier for some reason. And once you do one or two of these transfers, they're just a piece of cake after that. I mean, they're a piece of cake anyways, but it just takes one or two times so you really feel confident in what you're doing. Now you can see what I'm talking about, how the dahlia and then that one on the right are kind of like in the background, and the one that says seeds is right out front. I hope that makes sense. And then I'm just putting on my last one, which is going to go on the left side of the dahlia there. Here is what I came up with. I definitely wanted some words on here, and you see what I mean by saying keep all your words because you're definitely going to use them. Now, I didn't want to put seeds down twice because this says northern grown seeds, and then on the front there it says seeds. So I just thought that looked kind of funny saying it twice, so I put northern grown up at the top, and then one says like maize catalog. One has a date on it, and then one says like plants, bulbs, flowers. I just put different stuff like that because to me it looks like an old sign that would be hanging outside a mercantile from way back when. Here is where I remembered one of those other transfers. It had wording across the top that was fairly big, and I thought that would be perfect for my little mercantile sign. And it says Allner Brothers, and I just cut that wording off and cut it down so I could see that it would go there perfect, and it does. And so it looks like Allner Brothers Seeds, and it all just came together so beautifully and so cohesive. You can just use bits and pieces of these transfers, and it looks like it was meant to be the whole time. And I'm just doing the exact same thing to all these transfers that I do. I hold up one edge, rub my little stick across it, and then I burnish it. And as a personal preference, I run a sanding sponge across it. You don't have to do this by all means if you don't like the way it looks, but you'll notice here, like I'm pointing to the pink flower, it just gives it a more vintage look if you ask me. And I just like the way that that looks, but a lot of people don't, so it just all depends on your preference. And then I added one more word at the bottom because I just couldn't stand it just seemed like it was bare and naked on that one side. And this one says Farm and Floral Guide. And that completes my little mercantile sign. Now, if you ask me, this is worthy to go up on the outside of any old seed and feed from way back in the day. Maybe even Granny and Pop would let me put it in their mercantile store. So let me know what you think about this one, because I absolutely am in love.
I wanna jump around when I think about yesterday. Your smile, your style so fly, my oh my. As time stood still, I got the urge to steal a kiss, and so I did. Now I'm embarrassed, but just a little bit. Oh, there must be gold on those lips and honey on those fingertips. Can you imagine us two?
For DIY number 2, we're going to work on this cute little file drawer that I found at the thrift store. I paid $4 for it, and y'all are going to laugh whenever you listen to my reasoning, but hey, it's me, okay? So you probably won't be all that shocked. But it's got the drawer. It's just like brand new. I don't think anybody's really used it. It's made of steel. It's called Steel Master. That's how I know it's made out of steel. And yeah, it's just a little drawer. And y'all, this is a thing, so I'm not crazy. In my mind, you remember back in school where we had the card catalog. Okay, when I hear seed catalog, it just goes hand in hand with like books. And so am I crazy? But then I pulled this up on Pinterest, y'all, and there are people that actually do this, that have their seeds like organized in these. We're going to use the color Mint Chip, which is by DIY Paint. I have only used this paint one time in my life, and why did I do that? I'm like, why haven't I used that more? This paint is so beautiful on a project, y'all. Look at this color. And this is just the first coat. You know, the first coat is usually kind of wonky, especially if you've got like a darker color like this. And not to mention, you know, this drawer is made of steel, so it's not the easiest thing to paint. It wanted to kind of streak up on me. I probably should have used some of that Dixie Belle Slick Stick, but I was walking on the wild side, and I wasn't about to do that this day. So I gave this thing 2 coats of the Mint Chip. And you know, every time that I dry down DIY paint, I have to show you the process. But I do have to admit, now in this Mint Chip, it didn't really change that much. It did get lighter now. It always does. But man, this color is just heavenly, y'all. I went through here, and the first thing that I saw that I wanted is the wording that's above little May. You know, my little cousin May there that's cutting her flowers out in the garden. She grew up in Mississippi, but you know she's from Tennessee. Come on, she's my cousin. So yeah, we're just cutting this little area off right here because I want that word May. I believe that whole top area said maize, and then it said something to the effect of southern grown seeds or something of that effect. And since it was southern, of course I picked that one. I mean, hello. And yeah, we just got one of these little cards. Now, this is what I put on my stuff whenever I'm selling it in my booth. Just like a little card like this to say thank you and to put the price on it and stuff. I get these at Hobby Lobby, and I mean, they're just kind of like kind of like a cardboard, honestly. I cut it down so that it would slide in the front of my seed catalog, and I am taking the edge of the scissors and just kind of roughing it up. It's not cutting it by any means or anything, but it's making it all rough and willy-nilly, and I like that look. Hey, I'm from Tennessee. What do you expect? Now, here's the little part where I cut off the word May. Now, the apostrophe S I didn't need, and yes, there is a method to my madness, and you'll see in just a moment, but I just needed the May. So here I'm just putting it on my project, and it says May and it says 1904. And I'm doing this the exact same way that I do all the others. I kind of hold up one little edge and I use my tool, and it just comes off so easily. Now, from another piece of wording, there was a thing that said J. Steckler, I think. J. Steckler Company Ltd. So I'm cutting that part off. Now I'm putting it together, and it's going to say May J. Steckler. Okay, there is a method to my madness. I'm piecing this together so it all makes sense. Or at least it made perfect sense to me. So I'm just transferring these little pieces on here, and then I'm going to burnish it.
See, it says May J. Steckler Seed Company. Perfect.
Now the next thing that I'm going to cut off is just a very small piece, and it came off of our little picture of my cousin May, and it says Garden Manual, and that is actually what I am going to put on the front of my little seed card catalog. And I'm just kind of doing the exact same thing where, it's so easy to get these transfers. They stick to almost anything. They stick to this little piece of like cardboard type material. They stick to this steel, that's on this catalog. Card catalog, or whatever you want to call this little file cabinet that I've got here. They stick to so many different things, and they're so easy to use. If you want to make a project look beautiful, use a transfer, because you're going to get a beautiful project every time. And I have never gotten anything from IOD that I'm not happy with. Ever, ever. There's so much detail and love put into it. And when you do somebody right, they're going to keep coming back. And that is exactly why they have so many people that love their products, because they do it right. You know what I'm saying? So here I'm just taking a little strawberry, and I pulled this strawberry off of that little piece that you just saw, and I stuck it on there. Now here's May's cousin. This is Loretta, okay? And Loretta is from Kentucky. And she's got her little cousin Tanya there with her. That's Loretta and Tanya. And I'm just basically doing the exact same thing right here at the top of this file cabinet that I've done all along on these transfers, is hold one little end up and then go across it. And when I get my transfer on, I make sure to burnish it. I think this picture is gorgeous. I hope you guys like it. Let me know what you think about it. I haven't seen this picture ever before.
Now here I'm just taking my little hand sander zippy thing, and it's got 120 grit on there, which is a little bit of a lower grit than the first one that I used. So it caused this transfer to be roughed up just a little bit more than that first one. But I like that look. It's totally up to you. You do you, boo.
So anyways, right here, I am taking this picture that's got like little cherries at the bottom, and I think it's got a strawberry on it, or maybe it's a tomato. And I'm just going there and cutting those pieces of fruit off, like the single pieces of fruit. So I ended up putting this picture that has this beautiful little bird on the side, and it ended up being a bird and some grapes. Now, like I said a minute ago, I took some of the other fruit off, and we're going to place those one on each side of the little bird picture here. I actually ended up using those on the opposite side. I'm sorry. There's my little strawberry, and then I'm going to add, I believe that's the grapes there. I tell you what, sometimes it's hard when you're editing to actually see what's on there. After you hit 40s, it just, I don't know. But this is that Rust-Oleum 2x matte clear, and I like to spray my projects with that because it's easy and simple, and it's done, or at least I thought. But then I felt that this strawberry and the grapes there on the side was just very mundane, just hanging out by themselves. They needed something else. So I took these beautiful apples, and it's like a grouping of 3 apples, and it had writing on the bottom of it, but I cut that writing off because we didn't need it. We basically just needed the apples, and I placed it on there. And then we're done with the project. I hope you like this one. I think it's gorgeous, and please let me know what you think.
She thinks I'm a little lazy. I think she's a little crazy. We like summer and we like spring, watching wrestling in the ring. She ain't shy, she speaks her mind, tough as nails and smooth as wine. We burn hot as kerosene, baby, we got our own thing. She ain't skinny and I ain't tall, and that don't bother us at all. I run naked through the yard, she flash every police car, drinking wine and getting tired, shooting out the damn street lights. How does she put up with me? Oh, baby, we got our own thing. We got our own thing. We don't need no rain. We ain't rich, but son of a, we're a hillbilly king and queen. Life don't seem so hard with you beneath the stars, 'cause we're growing 4-leaf clovers in the yard.
On to our third project. This is a gorgeous vase that I just happened upon at the thrift store yesterday. I paid $4 for it, which is not a bad price because you know the thrift stores has been ridiculous lately. And I love the handle on this. Look how beautiful that is. Now, it's kind of pot-bellied. That's the way we call it in the South. You know, it's got a big old belly on it. And we're going to use Gravel Road. Now, Gravel Road is a lighter shade of the DIY paint, but before I add any kind of paint, I wanted to add the Dixie Belle Slick Stick because Slick Stick is a good product for anything that don't want to hold paint, like for instance, glass or vases like these. If you put a good coat of that Slick Stick on it, it just gives your paint something to adhere to. Now, I'm not sponsored by Dixie Belle or DIY Paint or IOD even by any means. Not at all. By the way, if y'all know the IOD sisters, tell them to call me up because we could work something out. But anywho, I just tell you guys what I think good products are. If I use something that I know is a good product, I'm going to tell y'all every single time. And speaking of good products, y'all know that on every one of my videos, I let you know that most of my products do come from Miss Lori. And she's at Milton's Daughter. She has a little store in New York. And if you guys ever shopped at her store, you would probably never buy from anybody else because Miss Lori is a sweetheart. And her website is www.miltonsdaughter.com. And if you use the code CraftyCathy10, you're going to get 10% off your first order. Now, there is an exception, I have to tell you. The DIY paints and the IOD stuff, they don't allow them to be discounted. So for those things, you don't get the discount. So please don't gripe at Miss Lori. It's not her fault. It's just kind of the way it is. But anything else that you buy from her is 10% off on that first order. Now, she carries everything. She carries all of the brushes that you see me use. She carries different types of paint. She doesn't just carry DIY. She carries Pentart products. She carries rice paper. She carries everything, honey. And y'all would absolutely love Miss Lori. So next time you need something, just go to her and you will love her. If y'all do want this Seeds catalog or any of the transfers or anything from IOD, honey, she has it all and then some. So all I'm doing right here is just giving this thing one good coat of the Slick Stick so that my Gravel Road will cover it. And when that totally dries, then we're going to add 2 coats of the Gravel Road. Now, Gravel Road is a light shade of gray, and when it dries, it's almost like a white gray. I'm not saying light gray, I'm saying like a white gray. And, I mean, I think it's a beautiful color, and I really do like it, and I thought that it would be beautiful behind the transfer that I intend to use on my little pot-bellied vase. Now, y'all didn't think that I was going to show you different stuff out of the seed catalog without using my little cousin May's picture, now did ya? we've got to use May. I think this is one of the prettiest transfers. I love this image so much. Now, with this being pot-bellied, it really gave me a challenge. Now, if you're just starting out with transfers, it's probably best that you don't do anything that has curved surfaces like this. Now, it's doable. Don't get me wrong. You can do it. However, it's not easy to do. It takes a little bit of practice, and still you may get some wrinkles on it because it's just harder to put it on a surface that's curved like this. And that's when I pull out the good old fingernail. Now, you guys that watch my channel a lot know that I love to use my fingernail instead of the little tool that they send you, because to me, especially if I'm needing to feel my way around, I can do it better with my fingernail. And I also, when I have something that's curved like this, I will literally take the scissors and cut a couple of places up the side of it, and it just makes it a little bit easier in my mind. Now, by the time I had finished this vase, I still did get a few wrinkles, but it doesn't bother me whatsoever. And even the people that buy my products, it doesn't seem to faze them at all that it has a little bit of wrinklage in it. Matter of fact, it kind of gives to the vintage look of the whole thing just a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying I prefer wrinkles, but I mean, they don't bother me. You know what I'm saying? So I just went up through this whole thing with my fingernail, and you'll see where I cut slits in the side of it, and it just helps me to get those edges down just a little bit better. But to be honest with you, I was just worried to death by the time that I had finished this, because I couldn't see what I was actually doing underneath that plastic piece on the top. And I just kept saying, Lord, please don't let May's little face be all distorted. And I do have to let you know, her face came out perfect. But you see me cutting these little slits in here. Like I said, in my mind, I think it helps. And I've seen a lot of people do that. So maybe it's a thing. I don't know. But I just did the best I could. And like I said, the wrinkles don't bother me too much. I guess it's kind of like life. Once you get over 40, you learn to embrace those wrinkles, because there ain't a darn thing you can do about them. Now, a lot of times when you do have a little bit of wrinkles, you can go through and use your finger to kind of get them out just a little bit. And I did that. And I also put that 1890, and it's from just one of those random transfers from before. I've got my DIY white wax and my waxing brush, and I just put a small amount on there, and I go over the whole vase. I make sure to get on all that beautiful scrolly on the handle there and on the sides, and I just got it all over the place, and I could not find the paper towel, so I just grabbed like a lint-free rag, which you can use that or paper towels or even baby wipes, and I just kind of wiped off the excess. I wanted a lot of white wax left on this vase, so I went over this 2 times, and that's all I did to this vase, and I hope you like this one.
We got married on the Georgian line. Watch out, ladies, this one is mine. He works hard and just don't quit. Even if his pants don't fit, Lord, he'll be the death of me. Baby, we've got our own thing. We eat good like you ought to do. Mashed potatoes and gravy too. Picnic table out in the back. He's only had one heart attack. Pecan pie beneath the moon. Paper plates and plastic spoons. We're as close as 2 sardines. Baby, we got our own thing.
We got our own thing. We don't need no rain. We ain't rich, but son of a bitch, we're a hillbilly king and queen. Life don't seem so hard with you beneath the stars.
DIY number 4. This one is really short and sweet. This is a little TV tray that I found at the thrift store. I only paid $2 for it, and it's really pretty. It's a decent size. Now, I was not crazy about that sheen that's on the bottom part of it there, like the part that you would set your stuff on. The rest of it didn't bother me too bad. So what I did was I took my dark and decrepit, which is about the same color as the tray is in the first place, and I just added a coat all over this whole tray, and I wiped off the excess with a baby wipe. Now, dark and decrepit is like a top coat. You can even use it like a stain or like you would use a wax and just wipe off the excess, which is exactly what I did. The next thing that I did is I laid out this transfer. I absolutely love this one. It's got apples on it, and I didn't use a whole lot of the fruit so far, so I thought let's use fruit instead of florals. And I did want the word seeds above it and like a date for sure. So I started off by taking my little apples and laying them down and doing the exact same thing that I have done through the whole video with my transfers. I'm just using that little tool that they gave me while I hold up one end of my little transfer. And then I'm just going all the way over it and it comes right off, and then I'm burnishing it. Then I laid down my word seeds. And I'm also going to put the date down. And I decided to put the date down underneath the picture of the apples because I felt like it needed something down underneath there. Then I found one of the little tiny pieces that I had before. And I wanted like the name of the company, you know. And so this one said LL May and Company. And so I was going to put that up on the top over the word seeds, and I did put it down. And then after I put that down, I wanted to go over the whole piece like I was doing before and just give it a little bit of a sanding, very, very lightly. And like I said, that's just a personal preference. And at that point, I thought I was done. And then I just kind of kept looking at that word, the May Company, and it just seemed like it was so small and it was kind of bothering me. So I went through my stuff and I actually found this bigger one that said the same thing, LL May and Company. And I cut it apart so that it would be in pieces, and I decided to go over that little area where it said LL May, and I didn't want to scratch it up with my sandpaper. I was worried about doing that. So I just kind of used like one of my little sanding discs that goes in my little hand sander and a combination of my fingernail and got it off of there without scratching it up. And now I'm going to put that bigger portion that says LL May and Company Seeds. And it just makes sense that way. And that's what I meant by you could use just different wording and different pictures from all your transfers to make endless amounts of different projects. And if you're liking the ones from the seed catalog, I have so many more projects in my mind. I just didn't have the time to do them all in one video. But if you want to see another one from the seeds catalog, just let me know, and on my next video, that's what I'll do. I hope you like this one. It was short and sweet, and I love it.
Thinking places where you spend your time. Ain't no place I'd rather go. You're a funny little critter and I love you so. And I wanna take a ride in the wheelbarrow in your mind. I come and sit down with me in a rocking chair. Coffee pot is nice and hot. We can sit in our underwear. Tell me about the dreams you had last week, swimming all around with the fish in the sea. Come sit down with me in a rocking chair.
Hey, if you stuck with me through this whole video, I just want to say thank you so much. I enjoyed your company, and I hope that I helped you in some way or inspired you. And I hope that you'll go try out this seed catalog because, trust me, you are going to love it. Now, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up if you enjoyed this video because it really helps me out on YouTube. It helps them to push my videos out there to people who've never seen me before, and it really helps out the channel. Also, make sure you're subscribed and that you have your bell notifications turned on to all. That way, every time I put out a video, you're going to be there with me. Now, my videos come out every Monday and Thursday at 6:30, and I hope to see you there at the next one, and I sure do hope you enjoyed this one. I love every single one of y'all, and I will see you back here real soon, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. If you did enjoy this video and you want to watch another one of mine, all you got to do is click that little button and it'll take you right there. Love y'all. Sometimes to upcycle your old decor, it doesn't take much. It might just need a spray painting, which was the case with this old rusty, crusty bird cage. It's a mint color, which doesn't go with anything of mine. So I gave it 3 coats of the satin beige by Rust-Oleum 2 times. It came out looking great, but I wanted one that had the bird on the top, and I had a bird that I got from Dollar General for $1, and I painted it white, and I just used some E6000 and glued that baby right to the top of my bird cage. So next I take this 3x5 frame, and I already like it the way it is. I just want to tone down the color a little. So I'm taking my Debbie's DIY white wax and a chippy brush, and I'm going to go over the whole frame with a pretty good thick coat. Then once I have it covered in the white wax, all I'm going to do is just take a microfiber rag, and I'm just going to go and lightly buff off some of that white wax. This definitely did the trick to tone it down just a little bit and make it a little bit more shabby. I took a piece out of one of my journals that's called God's Whisper. If your life is too noisy, you're drowning out God's voice. And I really like that reminder. I like the look of ripped pages, so I went all the way around that and ripped it, and then I just put it right back in its frame. I styled my bird cage by taking an old vintage key and tying it to some shabby ribbon on the side. And then I also added a couple of flowers, some ivy, and I put my beautiful little quote and picture frame on the top of some old books. And I absolutely love it. You know, sometimes I think I overthink my DIYs. I'm going to keep this one. It has special meaning. If you'll look on that vintage key, it says heart. And then I purposely locked that cage. And this is kind of like a little reminder for me that we allow so much noise to get our attention in our daily lives that we don't hear God's whisper. But if you'll just take the key to your heart and unlock it, it's like you're opening your cage and setting yourself free. I know that's kind of out there, but sometimes I do that, and I have little analogies for my DIYs.
Is that weird? I don't know, but let's move on.
The next one is this pretty little basket that I got from the thrift store. Well, it's a basket, but it's also like a little container, like a little box almost. It's got a lock on it, and I think it's really, really pretty. And it also had handles on it, which I had already taken off. They were basically kind of like thick jute cord, or jute rope, I'm sorry. And so what I'm going to do is give it a couple of coats of my Rust-Oleum white spray paint, and I always use the 2 times Rust-Oleum. But if I'm going to be spray painting a basket, I always go over it with a top coat first, because these baskets tend to soak up that spray paint. But if you put a top coat on it, it's like it gives it a barrier, and it gives something for that spray paint to stick to. So anything that has trouble with spray paint sticking to it, you just put this top coat on it and you're set to go. I'm going to use the Prima Redesign transfer, and these are called Vintage Dream, or this certain one is called Vintage Dream. I absolutely love the flowers in this one. And you know you can cut them apart. You don't have to use the whole picture the way it is. And I thought at first, you know, it's just going to go right through these holes. It's not going to be seen. And I don't know if I've ever even noticed anybody put transfers on a basket like this. But I was in a little bit of a daring mood. So I thought, well, let's try it. The worst thing that can happen is I lose my transfer. So I went over it, and all you do is lay it down and just use your little scraping tool. And I just really took my time with it. This is in super fast motion, just so I don't bore you guys. But I really just took my time, was slow about it. And a lot of times when you get your transfer stuck on there, you can start to pick it up, and it just like automatically lays down. It's almost like a sticker, but you just have to make sure that it sticks really good. So I put the big flower on the left side, and then on the right side, I put the two smaller flowers and going up the top. And once you find the placement where your transfer is going to go, it's not a good idea to try to pick it back up and move it, because parts of it probably will stick. And you are totally going to mess up your transfer. But I got this one flower down on the bottom, and then I put the other one kind of toward the top. Once you get your transfer totally on the object, you use the backing of that same sheet and just burnish it. And that just means rub it around, basically, so it'll stick down really good. And this is what I came up with, and I just used some jute cord for the handles. I hope you like this one. I'm really glad now that I took the chance on trying this. I wanted to jump in for a minute and ask you guys to subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you as part of my family here on YouTube. All you got to do is hit that little red button and you're in. And give me a big thumbs up because it really helps support my channel out here on YouTube. I'm going to start out with this big size tin can that like a big size that green beans come in. You just take everything off of it, and I spray painted it smoky beige by, you guessed it, Rust-Oleum 2 times. And I'm just putting 2 pieces of wax on the side so it doesn't move. We're going to do a little decopauging, which is one of my favorite things. You just get a little bit of your Mod Podge on your fingers together, and then you go, like I did there, like pinch the napkin, and it will cause that back side to come off. Now, most napkins have 2 backings on them, but make sure it's all off of there or it will mess up your decoupage. And I'm just going to rip the part of the napkin off that I want, because I do not like straight edges on anything that I'm doing with decoupage. It doesn't look as good as it does when you have ripped edges. So you just rip off the piece that you want. And if you're afraid of it ripping, do like I just did. I squirted the end of my paintbrush and you dab it where you want it to be ripped, and it creates just a little bit of wetness, and it's so much easier to rip. Now, I sped this up for the sake of time, but you just go real slow. You put your Mod Podge down in sections and just very gently lay it down. You don't want to touch it with your hands after it's laid down. I mean, if you need to move stuff around just a little bit, you can, but be very careful because the napkins are so thin, they're going to, mess up on you if you're not careful. Now, your best friend is your saran wrap. I always say that. So I put it down, and you see I put my saran wrap over the front of this. I got enough to cover the whole scene there, and I just kind of used my fingers to kind of push the image down into the object and to pull. And when I pulled, that napkin went right into all those little ridges, and it turned out without a single wrinkle. And if you need to touch it, use your saran wrap to do so and set it aside and let it dry. Now I'm going to do a couple of projects together because it creates a vignette. And here I'm going to do a candle. I actually do two, but I'm just going to show you one for the sake of time. I've got my wet paintbrush, and I'm going down through the side of this, and I just kind of flipped it off. And see the whole, it's all like jagged, not jagged, I don't know the word, but I didn't, it's not a straight edge. It's ripped. Okay, I'm using antique Mod Podge, but there was really no difference in this Mod Podge than others, and Plaid sent it to me for free. Thank you, Plaid. So I'm going to try it out. It's just kind of a more antique-y color, I guess you could say, but I didn't notice anything else different. So here I'm putting my Mod Podge down in sections. I want my bird's face, or the front of the bird, to be the very center of that candle. So I lay it down, and I just kind of, once I lay it down, I just kind of let it fall as it may. And I start off in the middle, and I go down and up to try to get that image to fall down naturally, and that's where it's going to stick. I hope that kind of makes sense. And then, of course, I grab my handy-dandy saran wrap, and I lay it on the top of it, and then I use my fingers to put this exactly the way that I want it. And I'm so sorry that my doggone hair bow keeps getting in the way, but I'm using this new arm that goes over my head, and I thought it was totally over my head. But you're getting a good view of my Minnie Mouse hair bow. It's not really. It just looks like something she would wear. And so anyways, you just make sure that you use your fingers on top of that saran wrap. And hey, even if you do get a wrinkle, you can almost like iron it out with your fingers. The heat from your fingers on top of that saran wrap, run it back and forth like you're ironing that wrinkle out. And I promise you, for the most part, the wrinkle will come out. But guys, if you take your time and you do your saran wrap and you just slow down and get you some practice, hey, you will get this. It's not difficult. It's not a difficult concept, but it takes a lot of patience and practice, and that's something that most of us lack, especially me. It took me forever to understand that saran wrap is my best friend. And if you have edges that are sticking up that need to come off like this here, just use sandpaper or like this little wedge like I am, and you do it away from yourself and it comes off perfect. Okay, next I've got these two candlesticks. I got these at a thrift store, y'all, for $2 a piece because the lady didn't know how expensive these were. And I kept telling her, but she wouldn't listen. They are 52 bucks a piece, and they still have the things on the bottom. These are the heaviest, chunkiest, most beautiful candlesticks. And I've had them for a while, which is why I couldn't bring myself to paint them. But today I did. I used my white Rust-Oleum, and I gave it 2 coats, and then I did the clear coat. And then I'm just using my sanding sponge and very, very lightly going over it because I was even afraid to sand them. Like, these are my favorite candlesticks. I will not sell these in my booth. They stay with me, absolutely. And you can even use your fingernail to make a little scratch if you want to in the paint. Don't do it in the candlestick, just lightly in the paint, and it makes a larger spot and it looks good. And the next thing in my vignette is this little ordeal that I made. It's a riser. Okay, if you guys can help not looking at my chickens because they are so gorgeous. But anyways, I made this riser. These are just 2 of those little rounds that you get from Walmart for 97 cents, and I took the farmhouse beads and put it in the middle of them, and of course I painted it with my antique wax. And on the bottom is this candlestick actually, and it's a reddy brown color that I do not like. Look at my babies. It's so hard not to love them. See, I had to draw a little heart. I know I'm weird, right? So I painted that white, and this is everything together, and I hope you like it. I think it's glorious. I wanted to mention that these are battery-powered candles that I put that napkin on. I'd be afraid to put it on a real one almost because, I mean, who's wanting to burn their house down, right? And as I was going through my stuff, hey, I come across this box that's Rose Forever. They sent me these roses about a year ago. And I just, out of curiosity, thought, I'm going to look and see if they're the same because they say that the roses will never fade or lose their smell. And when I opened the box, I was like, wow, because the color is just breathtaking and they smelled so good. And I just wanted to show you guys because, I mean, it was just strange. I was just going through my stuff and I was like, ooh, I wonder what these are going to look like now. And I just wanted to show these off to you. I think they're so beautiful. But anyways, I contacted the company and let them know thank you again for sending me those flowers and how beautiful that they still are. And they said that they're going to send you guys a pretty big coupon. So I'm going to leave that in the description box below. If any of y'all want some of these flowers, just go down in the description box and get them. I can say it's been a year and they still look great. And I love the box that they come in. It's very Frenchy vibe and right up my alley. So anyways, let's get back into the DIYs. I have one more to show you. Now this one is going to be some vintage French books. Now these aren't the cutesy little books that all of us DIYers have made a million times over that have the words. These look like old vintage books where the spines are coming undone, and I just think they're beautiful and they have a French shabby vibe to them. So here I'm just making a gray color. I'm using white and black to get my gray, and then I'm going to add the light blue Glacier from Home Decor to get a blue color. Now that's going to be the main color of our books, but we're going to have several different colors mixed in and mingled in with that.
So I'm going to take my books and I want the spine completely covered in the light blue color. But the rest of it you do just almost like a very thick distressing. Now if you have any other color besides a blue, dark blue or light blue, you need to cover it up totally. So you see what I'm doing here, it's just a very thick distressing motion. And then I'm going to go over the pages also. If you have any other color besides blue and white, you want to cover it up completely, just like this red here. You want to make sure you've got it completely covered, and you're going to go down the spine of the book too, or I'm sorry, the pages of the book. Now on the spines, we are going to make it look old and vintage. And I use DOS brand clay, D-A-S. It's in my Amazon store if you want some. And all you're going to do is warm it up in your hands. And then you're going to go over it and you're going to cover the whole spine up with this. And you don't want it to be even. You want it to be kind of... it's easier for you just to watch what I'm doing than me to explain because it may not make sense unless you see what I'm doing here. You can use a little spatula if you need to kind of smooth it over, but you want it to be bumpy and rough looking because when you're finished, it's going to look like old ripped spine from a book. And if you need to use just a little bit of water so you can smooth your clay, that's perfectly fine. You just do what you need to do. And I must say, I think it looks better when I covered the whole spine up because on one of the books, I didn't totally cover it up. And the one where it's covered all the way does look better. This is the one that I completely covered, and I have it sped up for the sake of time, but you're going to leave it alone. I usually do overnight so that it can totally dry.
Then you're going to take a darker shade of blue, which I picked Nantucket blue, and I just put a dash of blue in it, which it really didn't make that much of a difference. And you're just going to kind of do a distressing motion all over that area that you had distressed with the lighter color. And then you're just going to put dabs of it on the spine, especially in the areas where there is no clay. You want that darker color. I actually think that the one that had the whole spine covered with the clay turned out so much better. So that's just my main suggestion, is to go ahead and cover that whole spine with the clay. You don't want it level. You want it kind of, so it'll look like a shabby old book. So you just go over everything with that dark blue color, and you're just lightly distressing kind of here and there all over that book. Then when all that's dry, you're going to take your lighter color of blue again and just lightly go over everything. Now you pretty much want that whole spine to be covered in the blue, the light blue mostly. And it's okay to have a couple of peaks of that white coming through, that's fine. I saw this off of Flea Market Rescue, and I just thought it was beautiful, and I've been doing it in my booth, and these have been selling like hotcakes. They sell more than the books that have the little words on the side. After I got all of my blue on and I was totally satisfied with it, I took a little bit of the antiquing wax and I just went over it very lightly. I even rubbed it in the spine with my finger in just small areas. I wanted to show you right here on the pages, look how pretty that is when you take the light blue with the dark blue and then go back over it with the light blue. It just looks like an old vintage book where the spines are just falling apart. And the lady from Flea Market Rescue did a much better job than me. But these do sell very well in the booth. And so what I did right here was show my head forever. Sorry. And I'm just basically going to take a thick piece of jute twine, wrap these books together, and then I had made some beautiful little tags for my booth, because that way I like to put tags on all of my things that I sell at my booth, because it's just an extra sweet little gift for the person to tell them thank you for purchasing from me. And this is how it turned out. If you made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I love you guys, and I appreciate every single one of y'all. Don't forget to go see Miss Maria, and don't forget to subscribe and like.
Hey there, everybody. It's Kathy's cousin from Tennessee, Bobby Joe Womble. And I can sing and dance and do anything that Hollywood wants me to do. And guess what? Hollywood called me back and wants to put me on that story called Real Stories. You know, the one that wanted me to act like I was inbred. I don't even understand why they would want me for that part. But anyways, I told them I wasn't going to lie that I'm not inbred. But they told me to sign a bunch of paperwork, which I don't understand what it means. So I signed it because I'm going to Hollywood. But anyways, I've been putting my affairs in order lately. I've been working on my riverfront property. By the way, how do y'all like the specs? I think they make me look a little sophisticated and ready for Hollywood. Mama got them for me at the Dollar General on account of she said I can't see nothing because I married Buford. I don't even know what that means. That woman's crazy. But anyways, I just wanted to stop in and let you know that my movie will be out real soon, and I was discovered right here on this channel because Kathy gave this channel to me, so it's mine. I might give it back to her when I go back to Hollywood because, you know, it's just so small fry stuff. But I love yous, and I'll see yous real soon. Bye.
Girls, why did you push open the door and come in here? Snooping around. You know I don't like you in here because you poop on command. Yeah, you poop in my floor and you don't even warn anybody. I know what you're after. The mealworms tasty trio. It's exactly what you're after, and you know they're in here. All right, come on, let's go. Mama get you some.
I just wonder which one of these girls pooped in front of the door.
Here we go with number one.
My first DIY is going to be this beautiful wall clock that I thrifted. I think it's so pretty. And when I first started on it, I wanted to really accentuate this beautiful detail that's around it. I think that is so lovely. I think I only paid like $1.99 for this thing. So I just grabbed it and I took all the pieces apart. A lot of times, if I find a beautiful clock that's round, I don't necessarily even use it for a clock. I thought that this one would make a beautiful wall decor, but I always keep all those pieces just in case I need it when I do happen to be putting a clock together. And honey, I'm telling you, this thing was a mess to try to get the front off of it. I don't know what was going on. It was some kind of hard plastic, and whenever I put the heat to it, it like started curling up on me. And I was going to save it until it did that. And I was like, yeah, you got to go, baby girl. So I just pulled it off. I used that heat to loosen up that glue on the back of it and popped her right off there. I have this gorgeous picture of these pretty little birds, and it's on rice paper. All I do is use rice paper and print the picture off on my regular printer, and I use the front of that little clock to know exactly how big I needed to cut this. And if I'm going to decoupage, which is what I'm going to do with this rice paper, I always rip my edges because you don't want any straight edges when you're decoupaging anything because it just looks more natural this way and it makes it so pretty. Then I took my little block of wax. You can use just a cheap old Dollar Tree candle. It does not matter. And you go around because this is a much easier way, I think, to distress. Whenever you put this wax on anything, whatever it hits, it's not going to hold the paint. So at the end, you just kind of scrape it off and you naturally have a beautiful way of distressing something. I pulled out my Debbie's DIY paint, and this green color is called Apothecary. It is one of my favorite colors. It is beautiful and breathtaking, and this paint is amazing. I gave it 2 full coats of the color Apothecary. I took the Waverly color called Ivory, and we're just going to hit the middle of this clock because a very little portion of my picture is going to show, and I want it to be the exact same color of the background of that little birdie picture that I'm going to decoupage on there. Now, if you like to decoupage and you haven't used rice paper, it's a game changer. Rice paper is so much easier to use than napkins because it's a little bit thicker and hardier, and it doesn't wrinkle and make all that mess that sometimes you get with napkins. Now, all I did was put down a little bit of Mod Podge and slap that picture right down. I always start from the center and kind of go out just to make sure I don't have any, bubbles or crinkles in my paper. Then I just took a razor knife and kind of cut around the edges to make sure that I had a good proper edge and that there wasn't anything sticking up or looking crazy. And I got some little fairy lights that I get off of Amazon. You get about, 15 packs in there, and there's 20 little lights on each string. And they're very inexpensive.
They're in my Amazon store in case you want any of these.
I think they're beautiful, and I love to use them in a lot of my different DIYs. Now, there was a little hole that's right there in the top that was perfect to slide that wire through there. And I just glued the little battery pack to the back of it, pulled it through, and I wound it around about 2 times so that it would go around my picture very nicely. And the good thing about these little fairy lights, if you need to put a little dot of glue to hold them, it's not going to fry that wire and mess up your whole lights. So I just put a couple of little dabs of glue, and that was plenty enough to hold it because it's a wire, so it doesn't need much to hold it. And after I put the little lights in, I still felt like it was needing something. So I grabbed some of this little Spanish moss. It just came from the Dollar Tree. And I put a little bit at the bottom to kind of make it look like a little birdie nest. And that kind of just gave it that little sweet touch that I thought that it was needing. If there's any that's sticking out and looks crazy, I just kind of trim them off with the little scissors there. Then I simply put a little dab of glue on the back and put my battery pack right there. That way you can flip it on and off with no problem. And I put my mirror back in, and let me tell y'all what I did. I started putting everything back together, and I had to use my screwdriver to put my little screws back in to hold the mirror. Well, Kathy cracked the mirror, and I was like, way to go, big girl. But I wasn't about to stop with this DIY because I thought it was beautiful. And you know what? A lot of people don't even like mirrors or, you know, like glass or anything in their stuff. So I thought, hey, leave it out. It's still going to look good. And I just used a little wet baby wipe to go around and kind of distress. Now, it made that darker color underneath, which if you remember, it was black and kind of a coppery color. It made it pop right out and go, look at me. Here I am. I'm beautiful. Then I had to hit it with my Debbie's DIY white wax. If there's one product that I cannot live without, it's this product. And it seals in that paint, makes it kind of calm down the color a little bit, if you will. It kind of mutes it, and it gives it this beautiful cottage chic kind of vibe. It's just beautiful. And then I just wiped off the excess with a rag. Now, if you've been around my channel for a while, you know me, I can't stop once I get going on a DIY. So I thought, hey, what if I add one of these little solar wood flowers? I liked that ivory color because I felt that it was just muted enough to make everything perfect. And then I still wanted to add something. So I took some little pearls and I just put 3 on the 4 different corners. And don't you know, I didn't even record that part. I thought I did. But here's what it looked like when the pearls was on there. I hope you guys like this one. I absolutely am mad about it. When I'm showing you guys my DIYs and staging them, I always like to put a little old vintage picture. That's me when I graduated nursing school 20 years ago, and man, how time flies. And I'm so into anything vintage, so I love to stick little vintagey whatnots in my pictures whenever I'm taking it for you guys. I hope y'all enjoy this one. I don't know which way I like it better. It's beautiful with the lights on or with the lights off. But let's just jump right on in to DIY number 2. This one is an old pickle jar that I had upcycled a while back ago. I didn't really like it. So we're going to use some Dixie Belle Slick Stick. Now, this is the first time I've ever started using it. It is specifically for glass and things that are hard to paint, like glass, metal, that kind of thing. And it pretty much does what it says. It's a slick stick. Anything that's slick, it helps that paint stick. You know what I'm saying? And I put just 1 coat on this and on the top. And guys, the paint went on like a dream. So this slick stick is another one of my favorite products. Then I put a little bit of baking soda and I put a little bit of paint, and the paint that I'm using is home decor color called Oatmeal. I kind of do half and half. So if I do 1 teaspoon of the baking soda, I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of the paint. Now, it's just to thicken that paint up a little bit. It kind of makes the jar or whatever you're putting it on look a little like concrete-y, you know. And here's another little tip, guys, if y'all didn't know. Take Vaseline, just a little bit of Vaseline, and go around the tops of your paint jars whenever you're finished with them, because you ever have where paint gets all like cracky and flaky. You won't do it with that Vaseline. I'm just telling you, it's a good little move, and somebody taught it to me, and so I love to teach it to you guys and help y'all out. So I'm just going to stir this up real good. And when I get it good and stirred up, I want the consistency of like a thick pancake batter. It's not going to run off of my brush whenever I hold it up. Now, my first coat that I put on is just to get the paint on. It's nothing special. Basically, you just slap that first coat on there. But on my second coat, after that first coat is totally dried, I do another coat, and I use this sponge dabber, I guess is what you call it. It's just a sponge, but I'm just pretty much dabbing that on there. And that kind of is what gives it that concrete-y look. You know, that look that we like on all of our jars. Or some of us do. I mean, it's just your personal preference, but I think it's really pretty. Plus, when the paint's a little bit thicker like that, you can't see any kind of lines or imperfections. So I let that second coat dry, and look at this beautiful piece of rice paper that my friend Teresa sent me. Now, Teresa sells napkins and rice paper and that kind of stuff, and I'm going to leave her link in the description down below because she has good prices and some beautiful stuff. Now, remember I told you that I like to rip the edges to make it look natural? The easiest way to do that is to wet them. So I wet the end of a little paintbrush, and then I use my fingers and very softly and carefully rip around the image that I'm needing for my decoupage. Now I'm going to take this pretty girl and I am going to put her on this jug. A jug. Man, you can tell I'm from Tennessee. It's a jar. So I put down a little bit of Mod Podge, and like I said, the rice paper, it works like a dream. It's so easy. I just do a little bit up top and then stuck her down, and then I put a little bit at the bottom. And you always want to make sure to get those edges sealed really well with that Mod Podge. That way it won't never come up. And I still do use Saran Wrap if I get wrinkles, but you very seldom get many wrinkles when you use the rice paper. Now, up at the top of this jar, since it was curved the way it was, I cut 3 just straight cuts in it, and it makes it a little bit easier to lay it down. And I did use my Saran Wrap up there too, because some areas are a little bit more tricky, you know, but you don't want no wrinkles. And then over here at the side, I just stuck another little rose kind of off to the side so it would look like the picture's going all the way around the jug. The jug. And on the front, I had 2 small little butterflies that was on this picture, and I just stuck those in front of her. Now, I gave the lid 2 coats of Ballet Slipper is the color. It's that pretty muted pink color by Waverly. And I did put that slick stick on that top of that jar too, just because, you know, it's a slick surface and it don't usually hold paint so well. Then I had to grab my Debbie's DIY white wax, y'all. I've had this jar forever. And guys, I do so many DIYs and I'm not even halfway through this jar. I'm not kidding you. It is a little bit more expensive. I want to say it's about 15 bucks for the jar, but it lasts you forever. So you just rub it on and you rub it back off to whatever preference, how much you want on there. And it just mutes down that color a little bit and gives it a little vintagey vibe. I wrapped some jute twine around the top of it, and I had to get all the little fuzzies off, so I used a lighter to do that, and it just burns them off perfectly. And then the last thing I done was I took some of this ribbon, I guess you would call it ribbon. I got it at the Dollar Tree, and it's almost like I really don't even know what you would call this stuff, but I mean, you can see it. I really don't even know what you would call it, but I just kind of cut it up because I felt like the jar needed something else, and so I just ended up like fooling with it for a little while, and I finally settled on kind of tying it in a very loose, tacky kind of, you know, like a shabby chic type bow. I found this little flower petal with the pearl in the middle somewhere. I don't know where it came from. And so I like to add a little 3D effect to my stuff. So I stuck it kind of on the side where it looks like it's in her hair with the rest of the flowers. And then I did use a very light sandpaper to go over it and kind of scratch it up and give it that vintagey look. I hope you like it. If you're new here, or if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, what in the world are you waiting for? I would love to have you as part of my family. All you got to do is hit that little red subscribe button and you're in. It's totally free, and if you hit that little bell beside it, YouTube's going to let you know when I put out a video. And if you enjoy the content, give me a big thumbs up because it really helps support my channel. Now let's get into the next one. This is a little planter that I got, little watering can that I got from my thrift store for $1. Now it's that metal that's kind of hard to paint, so I gave it that slick stick also. And then I just painted it with the exact same mixture of the baking soda and the oatmeal colored paint that I had mixed up before. I had it sitting around, so I figured I might as well. And I only gave it 2 coats of this, and I did the exact same thing. I daubed it on. Now on this one, since it was a little bit harder to paint, I didn't just swipe on that first coat of paint like I did with the jar. I started right away with that daubing motion, and I did that 2 times. And now I'm going to use some IOD transfers. Now these are called Redoubt 2. And my friend Lori over at Milton's Daughter sent me this, and I thank you so much, Lori. This is beautiful. And guys, the thing about the IOD transfers is you don't have to use that whole page. You can use little bits and pieces of it or just the words, and it makes any project beautiful. Now, I'm going to leave Lori's link down in the description box below. Her store is called Milton's Daughter. That's where I get anything IOD from. And she's awesome. She's quick to get it to you, and you will not be disappointed. And let me tell you what else. She gives my subscribers 10% off your IOD products. So y'all make sure that you go see Miss Lori down at Milton's Daughter and let her know that Crafty Kathy sent you her way. So I finally found the one that I wanted. All I needed was a little piece. And these are so easy to use. All you do is just lay it on whatever surface you're going to put it on, and then they send you a little tool, and you just have to scratch it with that little tool, and it comes right off, almost like a sticker, except for it's so beautiful, guys. Like I'm telling you, it will make any DIY just pop. And a lot of times, to be honest, I do use that tool, but I kind of prefer my fingernail a lot of times. It's just easier to get it off. And then when you get the image off, you burnish it. And burnish just means where you take that little clear film that it comes on and rub it on the top of it to get it to make sure it's sticking real good. Now, I picked this word, and it's from a different part of the book. Like I said, you can use bits and pieces, and I just put this down on the bottom. It's a French word, so don't ask me what it is, because us Tennessee guys, we don't speak French. Unless you're talking about French fries now. That's another story. But anyways, I put another little rose on the back, and it's from a totally different part of the book. And from another book called Brocante, I had this beautiful little butterfly, and I thought it went perfect with this watering can, so I put it on kind of on the side there. I added another little rose to the side, and then going up the spout,
I put like another little phrase that went right along with the other French words that I put on there. Then I used my Waverly ink, which is their black colored chalk paint, and I went all the way around the rims of this little watering can to kind of give it like an enamel look. But I used my finger. It's my favorite form of distressing. You know, we always joke about that. Instead of a paintbrush, a lot of times I use my finger because it just distresses everything perfectly. So I went around all the edges with my finger, and I think that turned out so pretty. And that's all I did to this one because it didn't need anything else. And I hope you like this one. I think it's just cute as can be.
What's it like to be the one that he turns to when he's out of answers? What's it like to be the one that he comes to when he wants to dance?
I bought this little basket from the thrift store and I decided to paint it. So I taped off the bottom third part of it. And the upper part, I painted it with the color called Ivory Bisque, which is just an ivory color. And then the bottom, it was called Coastal Sage. And y'all know I've got that little Etsy store called Kathy's Crafty Boutique where I have all that sublimation prints that are in there. And I decided to do a little sublimation. It's been a while since we've been doing our sublimation, and y'all know how I love it. So I printed these two beautiful roses out on this sublimated paper, and all I'm going to do is just cut it out here. I'm actually going to put it on this runner that came from the Dollar Tree because it's 100% polyester, and to do sublimation, you get a better result if you use at least 70% polyester. So all I have to do is lay my print down and put my wax paper down over top of it, and then my Cricut hot press for 60 seconds on 385. Now don't forget, come visit my shop if you guys need anything that's sublimated. I have beautiful prints, and like I said, it's been a while since we've talked about the sublimation, but I absolutely love the way it always turns out. And look at this, voila! So I just cut my little print out, and I'm going to put it right in the middle of my basket. All I do is use a little small dab of hot glue on the corners to hold it down. And I think this turned out beautiful, guys. After I got it glued down, I did use a little bit of the Debbie's DIY white wax, mostly on that darker part on the bottom, that Coastal Sage. It's kind of an apothecary color. It almost came out looking like that apothecary. That's absolutely all I had to do to this, and I love the way that it turned out. This will sell very fast because the baskets are always a fast seller, and you can always find a ton of them at the thrift store. If y'all stuck through this whole video, I just want to say thank you, and I love each and every one of y'all, and I am so thankful for all the support and love that y'all show me. A lot of times when my own family's not like family, y'all are that to me, and I am so thankful that I do have a family with y'all that I can come to and share my life with, and I just love y'all from the bottom of my heart. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and go check out my Etsy store, and go check out Miss Lori over at Milton's Daughter if you need any IOD products, because she will give you that 10% off. And you got to stick around because you know there's either going to be bloopers or some of my critters. Got her hand up there waving.
Isn't she the most gorgeous thing that you've ever seen? Oh, she's beautiful.
Look at how she's sitting. That's so funny.
That's my girl. That's my Retta. That's my girl.
Here's our little garden. We have Mexican calabacita, which is like a green squash, like a zucchini. We have Tabasco peppers, and we have about 20 tomato plants. Early girls and better boys. And we have 2 rows of corn. But it's small. It's all we need. It feeds us and some of our family. Perfectly redneck way to water a garden. And a perfectly redneck man with a beat up hat that looks like it come out of a cow's butt. Nice. You mean I gotta walk down there and move the hose? We can't be doing none of that. I gotta have one of them ones that just does it for me. Sabby, you want to sing intro? You want to sing the intro song? You want to do intro? Shay, you being lazy? Sabby. You. Mama's babies are getting some bug bonanza tonight and some buttermilk. Yes, for their digestion. Yes, that's it, because Mama gonna make sure those girls are fine and their little digestive tracts are perfect. Oh, what have we got in the mealworm bag, girls? Oh, there's little shrimp. Yummy, Loretta. Oh my gosh, I'm going to just hurl. Here, I'm going to put it in there because you've got to drink your buttermilk, girls. Get your buttermilk. Oh yeah, Retta, yeah, that's good. Here. Now you know I got to love you to no end to sit here and smell buttermilk and baby shrimp. Look, Loretta got her a shrimp. They got them some shrimp and bug bonanza, which is mealworms, shrimp, and I think there's crickets in there. I don't know what all that is. It's just